Hi guys, it's Miss Carico here, and for PLTW today we are going to be working with blueprints, and with those blueprints we're going to be practicing shapes, and then for the next class we will then be looking at drawing the isometric 3D version. But for today's class we're going to focus on getting 3 of the 4 views done on graph paper. If you don't have graph paper, there is a website that I will link on Google Classroom to where you can print the graph paper. As long as you have a printer at home, you'll be able to print that directly at home so that you have graph paper that you can use. Or there is a notebook of graph paper outside the school in my tote where you can rip out a few sheets of graph paper out of that notebook and you can take it home to use. For my drawing, I will be using a marker so that you'll be able to see it a little bit more clearly. I had to draw really dark with this pencil rather, and it is still a little bit difficult to see, especially on camera. So I'll be switching gears and using a pen, but for your blueprints, please make sure to use a pencil so that you're able to erase and you don't have any harsh lines that were mistakes that may confuse someone that's looking at your blueprint. The drawing that I'm going to be replicating is off of your PLTW Lesson 1.2, A Picture's Worth 1,000 Words PDF file. And the shape is also on this PDF file that we are drawing. I'm going to be replicating the example that's from question 7 for the shape practice. And then once we're back in school or next week, if we are virtual, I will have cubes for you to pick up in bags so that you can create shapes and we can do some practices with the blueprints, and that way you'll be better able to do your blueprints and sketches for the puzzle cube project. So this is the finished product of what we're going for today. We have a top view, we have the front view, and then we have a right side view. And then of course the next class period we will do the isometric 3D view here. I need a fresh sheet of graph paper. I'm going to do a new one. So the first thing we need to do for our graph paper is that we need to get everything set up. The first step I don't need to do for my graph paper because it has the spacing and border already done. But if you have the graph paper that goes all the way to the edge of the paper, like this one for example, you're going to want to put in the border around it. And I typically do that with 3 down from the holes, a finger's width around the outside, or just 1 square, and then a 2 square border at the bottom. It's about a finger's width at least all the way around. So I don't have to do that, but you can pause this video at any time in order for you to catch up with what I'm doing. So next I am going to go across and find the center of my paper. So if you're not sure, you can count the squares across the bottom. I'm going to pause the video on my end so that this video is not very long, but you can pause this on YouTube once you get to this section and you can count and find the center line. So I'm going to be counting across here, finding how many squares there are across, and then finding the center and drawing that line up. Like I can eyeball this, but I'm just want to make sure that I'm looking at it correctly. Right, so I counted across and I put a little dot in the center, and then I also did it on the side here. And what we're going to do is with your ruler, making sure to hold that ruler correctly with at least 3 fingers. Otherwise your ruler could move if you don't properly hold it. and then you won't get a straight line with your ruler. So I'm going to hold it with the three fingers, making sure this is even, and then drawing my line straight down. I'm going to turn it around and then draw our line this way. And then we should have 4 squares or quadrants that are exactly the same size. And so what we have done is we have divided the blueprint into one large piece, and then we have then divided it into 4 different parts. And each one of these stands for a specific view. This one's going to be top, so we can go ahead and write that in there in all capital letters, the word top. We have 3D, front, and right. The reason why we write in all capital letters is that no matter how quickly you write in capital letters, it is more legible than if we wrote in upper and lowercase. The next step is that we need to put a title for this one. You would put your last name and then put shape practice in all capital letters. And then your grade as well. The next important thing that you should write is the word top at the top of your blueprint. That is so that someone knows how to orient your paper when they're looking at it. And then at the bottom here, we're going to write not drawn to scale. And what that's telling somebody is this is just a reference for what something's supposed to look like. It shouldn't be used to get a specific size or measurement. Whenever I draw blueprints, I typically start with the front view and then work my way around into the front, the top, and the right. And I always save the 3D view for last because something that I use to make it easier on myself is that I look at my 3 views and I think which view shows the most information about that object, and then I will choose that, redraw it, and then create that view as a 3D. And I'll show you how to do that in the next video. So I'm going to start with our front view. This is not drawn to scale. However, we have some things that we need to do to make this look neat and clean. I always have a finger's width in between my borders again on the inside. I'm not going to draw another border, but I just keep that as a buffer so that anyone looking at my blueprint knows that it doesn't go off the blueprint. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up by 2, in by 2, and that's going to be our starting space. And let me zoom in here so you can see more specifically what I'm doing. All right. So we're in by 2 and up by 2, and we're going to be drawing a line that is 8 lines long. Making sure you're holding that ruler correctly with your 3 fingers. At the top, we're going to draw a line that is 4 squares long. Another one down that is 4 long. You're going to have another one that's going to be 12 long. So here's 4. Okay. Just like this. Draw another line down. That's 4. And you're going to connect these 2 lines here. Then we have one more line to draw, which is 4in. And it's just to divide this off as a space. There we go. And this is the front view of that object. Although I didn't have any sort of scale for this, I wanted to take up the room that is a part of the section as much as possible. So I make it as big as I can in order for me to be able to fit the object in each one of the views, with the exception of the 3D view, comfortably. So with each square being 4 by 4, or block for our shapes, we would be able to fit the entire thing in each view. So that is why I did 4 lines each time. I'm going to use a pencil for this, but you are still using a pencil, so you're just going to do this very lightly. I want you to draw a line that goes up and down like this, very lightly. Mine's going to be dark so that you can see it on the camera. And you're going to be drawing the lines that intersect with each piece like this. Up. Oops. This is why we write very lightly, so that it'll erase cleanly. And we do the same thing on this side. What these are guidelines to help keep your shapes all within the same eyesight range. So this will line up here with this will line up here with this, and that just keeps your blueprint looking neat and clean and organized. Later, once you get done with drawing it and then inking it, you can go along and you can erase these lines, and then no one will be any of the wiser that you drew these guidelines. Go across and do the right view. I'm going to go in by 4 for this one because I wanted to center it. And we're going to draw a line straight up by 4. And look how we're hitting these guidelines. Draw a line starting from here over by 8. Okay. Then you're going to go straight up by 8. This one's going to be by 8. You go in by 4, draw up by 8. And then your piece of 4. So now you should have 3 squares, 2 beside each other and 1 on top. And you'll notice how each quadrant or square lines up with the other view. So it's not drawn to scale, but it looks neater and cleaner. Our next view is going to be the top view. And we're going to be following these guidelines. And you're going to go up by 2, up 2 over 2. Now the reason why I'm not going in by 4 like I did here is that this is going to be just as long as this one down here. And as we can see, it pretty well covers the space well enough. So for the top view, it's a Z shape. So we are going to go into up to, and you're going to draw a line that is 8 squares long. And I have a guideline that goes right up through here, which ends here. So I can just take this and just run it across. And I don't even have to count my squares anymore because we're just going by guidelines. The same line up, we're going to go up by 4. Over by 4 to the right. Up by 4. And then we're going to go all the way across by 12. So we're going to hit all the way across to this guideline here. Now see how much more simple it is when you draw those guidelines. You don't need to sit and count. It does save time. And it just helps you visualize what you're doing. So I just drew a line from here to here connecting these. We're going to go into this guideline and go down by 4, drawing a line. And then we're going to complete this here with this line. And there you have it. So now I'm going to go in and I will erase my guidelines. My pencil does blend in with my lines, so you can't really see it that much. There we go. But just to keep it clean, because it does show up. It doesn't show up on camera, but it is here. I can see it off camera. But let's go ahead and look at the blueprint as a whole. And what we can see is that everything lines up with each other. And even though it's not drawn to scale, it still has some form of organization to it. So the next class period, we're going to be working on the isometric section of this. And I would suggest that you practice with your isometric drawings. Just find some things that are around your house that are square in nature. And just practice drawing it as a 3D through an isometric sketch.